Look, the Chiefs have been getting away with it all year long, and it finally caught up with them last week in Buffalo. And I'm not coming out here and saying the Panthers are going to win, but I'm giving them a chance.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to get those questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Panthers are back home, having not lost in 1, 2, 3 straight weeks, 3 weeks of being unbeaten, having the bye week last week following the overtime win in Munich, where the Panthers led Daniel Jones to no longer be the Giants quarterback. Matter of fact, he's no longer a New York Giant anyway. So they basically got Daniel Jones fired. Before that, they were able to get Dennis Allen, the Saints coach, fired. Who gets fired on Sunday when the Panthers shocked the world and upset the Kansas City Chiefs? And looking at this game, we're going to get into the keys of victory. I got some questions heading into this Week 12 matchup, and then we'll look at the injury report and see who's going to play, who's not going to play, just based off of the trends, as recording this before Dave Canales speaks to the media on Friday afternoon ahead of this matchup against Kansas City. But looking at it this season, Kansas City has not been nearly as dominant as one would expect for a team that was undefeated heading all the way into Week 11 last week before they lost to Buffalo. And I understand that the Buffalo Bills are a Super Bowl contender, and they are a team with Josh Allen that's always going to have a chance, and they've had success the last couple of regular seasons against the Chiefs. Just when they get to the playoffs, they're not able to win those games when it matters most. So I'm not going to count out KC. Obviously, they're still in a catbird seat to have the number 1 seed and that bye and once again host the AFC title game in Arrowhead Stadium. But today, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking that this is a team that's been getting away with it all season long. They've had a ton of close matchups, and when you look at point differential in the NFL, which is a great indicator of who's actually good and who's actually not that good at all, they're only sitting here at a plus 49. Currently, there are 5 teams in the AFC that have higher point differentials than the Chiefs, including their division rival, the Denver Broncos, who should have beat them a couple weeks ago, and the Chargers, who also could have beaten them, and they're going to face those 2 teams later on this season. Right now in the NFL, they rank 10th among teams when it comes to point differential. Now, understand this, Carolina is dead last at minus 143. So there's still a massive gulf between the Panthers and the Chiefs this season, with KC sitting at 9-1 and Carolina sitting at 3-7, with an opportunity where if they are able to upset Kansas City and the Falcons, who have a minus 30 point differential, by the way, y'all, if the Falcons continue to slide and the Panthers and the Bucks and the Saints are able to turn things around, we may have a race here in the NFC South. But before I can really buy into it, Carolina's got to knock off Kansas City or Philadelphia to really announce themselves as contenders in this division, because they have those 2 teams remaining, have Arizona. Those are the last 3 legitimately good teams they have to play. They got to play Tampa twice. Mike Evans looked like he's coming back either this week or next, so that's going to help them immensely on offense, as Chris Godwin's already out for the rest of the season. Then you look at Atlanta. Andy Dalton does that pick. If he doesn't throw it, is that a game Carolina wins? Maybe not, because the defense wasn't great that day. Either way, they had an opportunity driving down the field, a chance to tie that game. I believe it was in the 4th quarter when they threw that pick, where Andy Dalton threw that pick targeting Ian Thomas, which is just an insane thing to want to do on a critical 3rd down like he did in that game. So if Carolina can upset KC, we can talk about it. But I do think they have a chance to win this game on Sunday. They have a chance absolutely to be competitive in this game. So keys to victory. How can they do that on Sunday against Kansas City Chiefs? Number one, got to find a way to run the ball. The Chiefs have not allowed teams to do that really all season long. Buffalo ran for 104 yards last week, 55 of them from Josh Allen. And we know that long touchdown run he had at the end of that game just went full Superman alien mode and won that game for Buffalo. Kansas City is second in the NFL with 3.6 yards allowed per rush attempt. They are third in total rushing yards allowed as well, but only 14th against the run according to EPA. The Panthers are only 25th in the NFL in rushing yardage, but 10th in yards per rushing attempt, which is a lot more important, I suppose, than just total rushing yards, because at least when they run it, they're having success, which makes you wonder, why don't they run the ball more, especially when you're paying Chuba Hubbard all the money they're paying him over the next couple of seasons. And they drafted a running back in the second round, Jonathon Brooks, who's going to be making his debut on Sunday against the Chiefs. Now, Chuba Hubbard is fourth in the NFL right now in rushing yardage, and he's fifth in rushing success rate among running backs with at least 125 rushing attempts on the season. Have 25 written down for whatever reason. He's been phenomenal. He's earned that contract 4 years, potentially up to $37 million, 2 years, 15 really is what the deal looks like. And I honestly would not be surprised if he's able to play throughout the lifetime of that deal. If, of course, the same staff, Dave Canales, is here for the next 4 years in Carolina. I absolutely could see that if Chuba continues to play well. It's not like he's taken that many hits in his NFL career and going back to college. It was one season where he was truly healthy and ran the ball a ton when he won the Doak Walker Award for the best running back in college football back in, I believe, 2019. So that's the first thing you got to do. Got to find a way to run the ball. I know that's really the key for Carolina week in and week out. Canales talked about in his Monday press conference following the Giants game that they have found their identity on offense by able to run the ball, and they did that in that win, and they've done it in past weeks as well. And Chuba has been phenomenal. And with Robert Hunt, Cade Mays there, and Damian Lewis in the center, they're going to have to go up against Chris Jones. That is really a key matchup to watch in this game. So got to find a way to run the ball, have success on the ground, and stay ahead of schedule. Number two, got to cut it loose. You can't do what they've been doing the last couple of weeks where we see this conservative passing game plan. If you're going to put Bryce Young out there again, which Dave Canales is going to do, you got to give him an opportunity to actually throw the ball down the field. And earlier this week, Dave Canales said that that's on him. He has not given Bryce the opportunities to throw the ball down the field. We looked at that first start he had coming back against Denver, did not see a down the field throw until the third quarter when they're already down 2 scores. Just head scratching stuff. Then later on, he connects with Jalen Coker, had a really phenomenal throw to Jalen Coker. And I understand still, there are times where Bryce is overthrown Leggett, like he did on that first deep ball in that Denver game, then what he did on that third down 2 weeks ago, against the Giants in Munich. He's missed some of those throws, but he's also shown the ability to connect on them. And the Panthers have got to try to stretch the field to be able to open up the run game, but also to keep this very good Chiefs defense honest and to attack them. Play on the front foot. Don't be conservative when you want to try and beat one of the best teams in the NFL. And Bryce Young, looking at his stats so far this season, is last in the NFL in adjusted yards gained per pass attempt at 4.14. The next closest player is Deshaun Watson at 5.12. That's nearly a full yard more than Bryce Young, and Deshaun was terrible and is out for the rest of the season. Now, for context added here, Andy Dalton is 33rd at 5.37 yards gained per pass attempt. So 5.37 for Andy, 4.14 for Bryce. Not a massive difference, but it is pretty considerable when you look at that's over a full yard more per yards gained per pass attempt adjusted this year, but still pretty bottom of the NFL as 36 quarterbacks qualified according to Pro Football Reference. And Bryce is also only 35th in passing success rate, only ahead of, again, Deshaun Watson, who is terrible, is out for the season up there in Cleveland, who got that upset win on Thursday night in the snow against Pittsburgh. Now look at this so far this season, especially trying to get the ball down the field. Buffalo had 4 receivers last week with 20-plus yard receptions last, so 20-plus yard receptions last week. That's the first time the Chiefs have allowed that to happen so far this season. The Panthers have actually surprisingly done that twice. They did it in the week 3 win on the road against Las Vegas, and they did it against the Bears in that blowout loss up in Chicago. So they've shown the ability to hit multiple receivers on chunk plays. So with Adam Thielen coming back, we get still here, and we have not seen that explosive chunk play from him just yet. Jalen Coker, who's continued to develop, JT Sanders as well. Can each of those guys make a chunk play or two to really open up things offensively on Sunday and give Carolina a chance to really attack the Chiefs defense that's, again, been excellent all season long? Number 3, they got to force and take advantage of Patrick Mahomes' mistakes. He has been fine this year. You still look at the stats. He's top 5 among passing success rate, EPA. He's been good, y'all. He just has not been great. And that's really the par for Patrick Mahomes when you've won 3 Super Bowls, you've won multiple Super Bowl MVPs, when you are, I don't even think he's the highest paid quarterback anymore, but when you sign a contract that he signed and we know just how good he is, the expectations are always going to be ridiculously high and probably unrealistic for him to go out there every week, throw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. I basically think that's what people expect out of him. And hell, man, we've seen it from him from the get-go once he became a starting quarterback in KC. And really even the year prior when he made that week 17 start on the road against Denver, he's outstanding. But he's made mistakes this season. And we talked to Chris Clark of Locked On Chiefs on the show yesterday in the crossover episode. And he talked about some of those have been just on tips. That's more on the receivers. It's just bad luck. And he's trying to make plays like the last week at the end of that game against Buffalo. Sure. But he's also thrown a league high 11 interceptions. And he's tied with guys like Will Levis. Will Levis and Patrick Mahomes should never be in the same sentence unless you're saying both of those guys are quarterbacks in the NFL, at least for now, because Will Levis is probably not long for the league, but he leads the NFL tied with 2 other players with 11 interceptions, but only the 9th worst interception percentage in the NFL. Bryce Young actually has a higher interception percentage. So does Andy Dalton than Patrick Mahomes so far this season. Opponents have converted 11 of those interceptions into 4 touchdowns and 3 field goals. If Carolina's going to win this game, they need to convert them into touchdowns, not field goals. Go back to that week 4 game against Cincinnati. The Bengals get an interception off Andy Dalton, cash in for a touchdown. The Panthers get an interception off of Joe Burrow, kick a field goal. Got to score 6 in order to win games like this against Kansas City. And even if they get into the red zone or they get into plus territory on 4th down, be aggressive. A couple weeks ago, it was a Saints game where it's like 4th and 2 from the Saints, like 42, and Dave Canal decides, now we're going to go ahead and just punt. And it worked out where they get a stop, get the ball back, and I believe they scored a touchdown on that next drive. But man, you cannot sit here and be conservative. You got to be aggressive. You're 3-7. You don't have much to lose. You're still unlikely to be a playoff team this season. I'm not buying into the playoffs just yet. Again, they got to beat Kansas City for me to buy in that, either Kansas City or Philadelphia, for me to want to have that conversation. But man, nothing to lose other than this game that everyone's expecting you to lose anyways. The Panthers had 3 takeaways the last time out against New York, and they are the healthiest they've been defensively this season when you understand that Shaq Thompson's out for the rest of the season and that Derrick Brown's out for the rest of the season. Where they're sitting right now with J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson, Dane Jackson, Xavier Woods, Jordan Fuller, all back there in the secondary. DJ Wonnum back healthy at edge, even though he's limited at practice on Thursday with that quad. And then Jadeveon Clowney, having those 2 guys starting. Josie Jewell playing good football since he came back after having that groin and quad injury, or groin and I think hamstring, whatever it was. He was out for a couple weeks. Him and Trevin Wallace back there. An opportunity for this defense to take steps moving forward after good performance in that game against New Orleans. Good performance, especially in that first half against the Giants, getting those 3 takeaways, all extremely timely situations where they got those takeaways in that game, including that punch out that led to the game-winning field goal by Nate Pinheiro. Got to take advantage, punch it out, get some turnovers, make some mistakes, or force mistakes rather from Patrick Mahomes, and then, of course, play complimentary football. So force and take advantage of Patrick Mahomes' mistakes on Sunday, cut it loose with Bryce Young, and you got to find a way to run the ball if you want to be right here in contention against a team that hasn't been that convincing a lot this season. You are what your record says you are, and it says they're 9-1, one of the best teams in the NFL. But they have not played like that every single week this season, even if they have come out victorious. Got a couple of questions heading into the Week 12 matchup. We'll talk about those here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I'd like to shout out my mom and my dad for always supporting me throughout my life, and especially with this podcast through the years. This month is all about gratitude, and along with the people I just shouted out, there's another person we don't get to thank enough. ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. You're thinking of starting therapy? Get BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Football season is back, and the best way to get the games this fall is with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And I would head over to Game Time right now, but you can even wait game day and get a really good deal for what is probably going to be the most expensive game of the season as the Panthers host the Chiefs on Sunday at Bank of America Stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. That's LOCKEDONNFL. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I have a few questions heading into this Week 12 matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs for the Panthers. And question number one, does Bryce Young have to play well to keep his job next week, or will Dave Canales let this be what it should be, a 6-week tryout? Now, I brought up on Monday or maybe Tuesday, whenever it was earlier this week, that the only other reason you don't play Bryce Young is you look at the division, look at Atlanta, how bad they actually are with a minus 30-point differential, and look at the situation and think to yourself, that's a team that's coming back to the pack. And possibly, even if they lost Kansas City, if we, the Panthers, get to 8 wins, that may be enough to win the division, knowing, especially at the end of the year, you get to play Atlanta week 18, and that could be the NFC South championship game. So that's one reason why the Panthers, really Dave Canales, to move off of Bryce Young if he does not play well enough in this game against Chiefs, which a game that Panthers are expected to lose, and no one will be surprised if they lose this game and if they're not competitive in this game. I certainly think they'll be competitive, but looking at it, grand scheme of things, Chiefs, Panthers, completely different directions these organizations have been going in. Would not shock anybody if Kansas City is able to win this game decisively. The second thing, also looking at it, why you get back to Andy Dalton is, well, the only reason he was benched was because of a fluke injury where he gets in that car accident with his wife, his kids, their dog. They're all okay, thank God, except for that right thumb sprain that caused him to miss that Denver game. It wasn't like Bryce was that convincing that game to where you thought they wouldn't go back to Andy Dalton, but then he played well against New Orleans. They won against the Giants, and Dave Canales came out and talked about on Monday saying, this is about continued progress. This is about Bryce looking more and more confident in Germany. I just feel a real confidence, just an aggressiveness to his play. And of course, the end result, winning. He continues to do things that put us in a position to put him back out there and continue to build on that, but still saying, yes, we will continue to evaluate and look at the film, look at the whole situation, and weigh all of those things in when looking at the quarterback position, whether they start Bryce next week or Andy next week. So the fact that Andy was the guy that Canales was very adamant saying he gave him the best chance to win, and then he gets hurt, and they've gone to Bryce, who's helped them win games the last 2 weeks, that would be something they could go back to if he still has that belief in the back of his head. So those would be the two reasons that he believes Andy is still the best option for them, even if Bryce helped them win the last couple weeks, and looking at the division, and that, man, they could still go for this, even if they sit at 3-8 following this game on Sunday. So I do think Bryce Young has to play well in order to win this game. From my understanding, David Tepper has really been detached from this team this year, which is a good thing. And this was Dave Canales' decision. And you should give your head coach the autonomy to do that. I don't know if you should allow him to do that after 2 weeks when theoretically he was brought here to help Bryce Young. And I think he has helped Bryce Young by benching him. It's hard to look at things now, 2020 hindsight vision, and not agree that he made the right decision, but also what would have happened had he just stuck with Bryce. I don't know. Either way, Bryce has to play well on Sunday, and I think it's a big game for him. These are the kind of teams that you have to beat if you're going to win not a Super Bowl, but Super Bowls, like David Tepper said when they drafted Bryce Young, that he gave them among the other quarterbacks in that class, being C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, I suppose, he gave them the best opportunity to win Super Bowls. Well, if you make it to the Super Bowl, the team you got to beat out of the AFC more times than not is the Kansas City Chiefs. And it may be a Week 12 game. It may not be that important from the grand scheme of things, but it is to me when you look at the Panthers giving up all they gave up to get Bryce Young number 1 overall and for him to be in this position, battling to keep his job, not just for next week, but for 2025, you got to show up in these kind of games. And knowing that Kansas City is great against the run, Bryce is going to have to step up and really play well for the Panthers to have a chance to win this game. I don't think they're running wild against Kansas City. If they do, that's awesome. If the offensive line is able to win up front like that, but I really think Bryce is going to have a good day in the passing game. Like, I really feel like at minimum, he's going to have to throw for over 200 yards in this game. And that has only happened 4 times so far this season in Carolina, which is why last week during the report cards, they gave the position a D, because this has not been a well quarterback team so far this season, hence why they've only won 3 games, among other things, obviously. But going back to that quote, he continues to put us in position. He continues to do things, rather, that put us in position to put him back out there and continue to build on that. He's got to put them back in a position to put him back out there next week to build on his confidence and on him potentially being the guy the rest of the way and in 2025. Jonathon Brooks, what was his role, or what will his role be, rather, looking at what Dave Canales had to say earlier this week on Wednesday, saying, I'm just hoping to see him play confident, play fast, and be able to capture the style of football that he's used to playing. I know that that's going to take time, but I believe that he's physically ready to go down that road, particularly with Miles out, to give us another running back in there with Chuba, be able to carry the load. Talked to Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer about this on Monday, and Mike talked about he really feels like Jonathon Brooks is likely going to take those snaps that Miles Sanders was getting, especially in the pass game, and it's still going to be mainly the Chuba Hubbard show, which would make sense. Chuba's been one of the top 5 backs in the NFL this season. Do you really want to take the ball out of his hands this year to give it to Jonathon Brooks, who has not played at this level? A couple times you're going to have to. I don't think that should be the winning strategy, in my opinion. I would need to see more out of Jonathon Brooks, which we'll see. We'll get to see him. I'm going to need to see him play before I'm going to advocate for him to take the snaps from Chuba Hubbard away. Right now, roll with Chuba for the most part as that one back, and then let Brooks be that number 2. Then go into next year with a full off season, having played 7 games this season, that's where you can get to the 1A, 1B, maybe smash and dash 2.0 situation here in Carolina. Third question, how will the Panthers deploy their wide receivers, Adam Thielen back? And Dave Canales was asked about this as Jalen Coker has kind of taken over that Adam Thielen role over the last couple of weeks since he's been inserted into the starting lineup. And Dave had to say this: we're very flexible with where we can put guys, whether you're the X, the F, or the Z. But the way that we play our system, it's that we try to put guys in different positions for the concepts and for the matchups. And Thielen gives us a lot of flexibility with being able to take advantage of matchups when we can. So Adam Thielen will be right back there at the F. That's the slot position. X is usually Leggett. Z, maybe we'll see some Coker there. Maybe Thielen goes out there, but they're going to look at the matchups, and that's what football is. It's a matchup game. Try to find those matchups, exploit them, but having Adam Thielen, you would expect him primarily to be in the slot on Sunday and for him to have an impact against, again, a very good Chiefs defense in this game on Sunday, and I'm very curious to see how Leggett and how Coker are able to improve from having another threat, and really, the only proven commodity at wide receiver on this team. It's not 2018, so can't really say David Moore's a proven commodity, but Adam Thielen has been a good player, and we saw last year what he's still able to do at age 33. Now 34, having missed the last, been 7 games, last 8 weeks, really, with the bye week, and they weren't practicing, but still, having been out the last 8 weeks, he's somebody that can really give him a boost in this game and the final 6 games where maybe they can make a push for the NFC South Division title. And lastly, is Cade Mays going to audition for the center job in 2025? Is that what's happening right now? Is he's going to be the starting center? And on Monday, Dave Canales said they had a decision to make when it came to Brady Christensen and Cade Mays, knowing that Ike Ekwonu is coming back to play left tackle on Sunday the last 2 weeks. Cade Mays, he said, had played 2 solid games with Bryce going back with Bryce again this week. He thought that was a factor in the decision, knowing that those 2 guys have been together these last 2 weeks, that center quarterback exchange. So could not say enough good things about Brady Christensen, as well as he gives him that versatility to be able to go from center to left tackle is rare, and also admitted that the fact that Brady Christensen can be flexible and that they can move him to different spots made them think that maybe it makes most sense to bring him off the bench and have Cade Mays start. And then on Wednesday, when asked about it as well, like with Cade Mays and what he's done to really impress him, he says that he's really stout in the run game, that he did a great job last week pairing with Rob and Damien going up against Dexter Lawrence, who he saw in practice back when he was the Giants practice squad. So that was a little bit of an advantage for him. On top of that, his ability to get the runs, the passes directed and ID'd the right way, so that there was no drop-off from assignment standpoint was great. So Cade Mays going to get another start on Sunday. Chris Jones, also extremely good defensive tackle. And Dave also had mentioned, like, you go up against Dexter. That's not just Dexter Lawrence you're going up against, but you went up against Derek Brown all training camp and off season long. He's seeing these kind of players. Now, Chris Jones, probably the best defensive tackle in football. No offense to Derek Brown, no offense to Dexter Lawrence. I would say Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle in football now that a guy named Aaron Donald is no longer here and is headed towards a Buston Canton in a couple years there at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Another challenge, and if he's able to pass this one and maintains that spot, Panthers only got to give him like a $3.5 million qualifying offer, as he's going to be a restricted free agent after the season. That's a lot cheaper than what they would have to pay Brady Christensen on the open market once he becomes a free agent after this year. And I wonder what this means for Brady moving forward. I know that Mike Kay had brought up on Monday that he would pay Brady Christensen, and he talked about some of the other things the Panthers could do with the offensive line, shuffling it around if they want to do that this offseason, as there are questions about Moton, his future. So maybe Brady slides in there at right tackle. We'll see. It's unfortunate for him because he still played well and was just slightly better than Cade Mays when we went over this on Tuesday, just looking at the PFF numbers and what they've given up as far as pressures with the numbers they've had, pass blocking, run blocking, and just PFF grade overall. It's unfortunate that he's not going to be out there starting at least this Sunday and maybe in the next couple of weeks, as it feels like they're kind of set with Cade Mays. And we'll see if that's the case. As long as they're with Bryce Young, it feels like they're set on Cade Mays, as they have that relationship built together over the last couple of weeks. But big opportunity for Cade, and we'll see how it works out for Brady as he heads into free agency after this season. Looking at the injury report, 15 players on it this week. And there's always a lot, but not as serious as you would think when you see 15 players. So we'll talk about the injury report and where things are headed on Sunday for the Panthers injury-wise here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And looking at this game on Sunday, the line holding steady there at 10.5. The Panthers are 10.5-point home underdogs, plus 500 money line if they win. 43.5 is the over-under. Go over to FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Dave Canales should speak to the media in about an hour or so after I have this episode out there for y'all on YouTube and in your podcast feed. Always wrestle with whether to do this on Thursdays or do this on Friday morning, do it after he talks on Friday afternoons. Just don't want to wait that late. Try to get this out there for y'all. And not too much changes, as you just list who's going to be questionable, who's going to be out. And we know Miles Sanders not going to be out, is not going to play this week. He has the ankle injury. I saw him in the Panthers locker room leaving after that game in Munich in a boot before traveling back to Charlotte. And Dave Canales came out that week on Monday and said that they had to evaluate things. And then on Monday this week said that Miles Sanders would be out this week and he'd be evaluated week to week with that ankle injury. And looking at Jonathon Brooks now being out there, if he goes IR, probably the last time we see Miles Sanders as a Panther. And with Brooks now back, do we really need to see Miles Sanders? Is that going to be beneficial for this team as far as winning games and as far as what their future is going to be in that backfield, as they've already paid Chuba Hubbard? And, of course, they traded up to second round, earlier in the second round this past draft to get Jonathon Brooks. So Miles Sanders is going to be out. Damian Lewis, been ill this week, was limited on Thursday. Really not too big of a concern there, I would think. Ike Ekwonu also has been limited with an ankle injury throughout the entirety of the week, but he should be good to go on Sunday and start there at left tackle, as Cade Mays again is set to start at center for the third game in a row for Carolina. Jadeveon Clowney has not practiced at all on Wednesdays this season. So he was DNP with a knee injury, limited on Thursday. probably going to be listed as questionable. Don't think that's something where he's not going to be able to play. And Dave had said on Wednesday that he was going to be out. He expected him to be able to practice on Thursday. Did not seem to be all that concerned. Now, a little concerning just because he's not been on the injury report this season. J.C. Horn was limited on Wednesday and Thursday of a calf injury. Guessing that's also going to maybe be questionable or no injury designation at all heading into the game, but it seems like he's going to be able to play. Amari Barno, waiting to see his return. He was limited on Wednesday, but then DNP on Thursday. Don't expect him to play on Sunday, as I guess he'll probably be listed as either out or doubtful. Then I'm feeling been limited all week, that hamstring, and the expectation is that he's also going to be able to play in this game. And a couple more, it's just insane, like the amount of guys that you see up there. Eddie Pinheiro, he popped up on the injury report on Thursday with a left knee injury. Now he's right-legged kicker or right-footed kicker, but he's still got to use those legs, of course. But he hopefully that's not that big of a deal, but he popped up there. DJ Woonem also popped up on an injury report with a quad injury that had him limited on Thursday. Moten was out on Thursday just with rest. That's been something that's been pretty obvious. That was not obvious, but something they've done pretty much all year long to try and maintain his body throughout the year, kind of similar to Jadeveon Clowney. Brooks, he's good to go. Full participant the entire week. DJ Johnson was concussed in that game in Munich. He was full participant on Wednesday, but then limited on Thursday. So we'll see how that works out. Xavier Woods, shoulder, limited participant throughout the week as well. LeBron Ray, limited on Wednesday with a hand, full participant on Thursday. So he should be good. And that's pretty much everyone. Ashawn Robinson did not practice, but that was rest on Wednesday. Back out there, full participant on Thursday. So that's where the Panthers stand heading into Sunday as they welcome in the Chiefs in a game where I think that they can absolutely cover. And if Mahomes makes those mistakes, they run the ball well, and they give Bryce a chance to cut it loose, and he does that effectively, they can be in it. And they can have a chance to win. So we'll see whether that's the case on Sunday or not. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesday I'll be back answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And I'll be here live with you on YouTube following the Carolina Panthers upset victory of the Kansas City Chiefs.